In this tutorial, we're going to export a model, including its associated materials, from Blender to Amazon Lumberyard. I'm using Blender version 2.79 and Lumberyard version 1.11. This is actually an update from a previous tutorial that we did about a year ago with Lumberyard, and I believe that was version 1.5. The FBX import system has gotten a lot better, and it's actually much easier to include your materials through Blender, and I'll show you how to set all those settings. So opening your Blender file, here I've got a spaceship used for our first textbook in using Lumberyard in Blender. The first thing that you need to be sure of is that your units are compatible with what you're using in Lumberyard. In this case, we're going to be using meters, which is the industry standard for game development. So in your scene settings, select the scene settings, go to the units, and make sure that you have selected meters. By default, the units are created in Blender units, which do not correctly translate to necessarily the right size when you go to export as an FBX, and that caused some strange problems as the object exports and imports between the two systems. Once you have your length set to meters, make sure that your texture is properly imported. Here we've got our UV wrap imported and applied to the ship, and make sure that that texture is, of course, applied to the model. Once those are set, you can go to the File, Export, and select FBX. When you have that selected, you only need to export the mesh. You want your up direction to be Z positive, and X or Y forward, I'd like X forward, for your direction on the system. The last thing that you need to set is your path mode. Make sure that the path mode is set to copy and that you have turned on the texture or the embed textures button inside of Blender. Once all that's set, make sure that you're going to the correct folder for your object. This could be a shared folder between your device and the person that's actually doing the Lumberyard, or you can just simply go to that location, which is usually Amazon Lumberyard and the version of Lumberyard that you're using. For this particular project, I'm just going to save my FBX file to the Dropbox and be able to share it to the other system. Now that our file's exported, you'll want to copy it to the correct folder for inclusion inside the game. Once you copy it into your folder, in this case I'm using the samples project and have placed the FBX file in the objects folder of samples project. There you can see my FBX file. It will automatically be processed by the asset processor of Lumberyard. So I'm going to create a new level and just sample, and Lumberyard of course will create the sample, and scroll in a little bit before we place our object in there. You should find your newly created FBX file in the game objects folder or wherever you placed it. In this case, here's my Space Raptor, and I can drag it onto the screen, and let's pull it up just a little bit. There we go. So it has been imported properly and has the textures applied to it already. If you do have problems with the textures, you can of course go to the materials editor and change out the textures through that. And the materials editor can be found underneath Tools, Material Editor, and then you can open that. Once you've got your object imported, you can of course begin working with it by adding additional components. That'll be a different video. The next thing that I would do to this particular object is add the character physics to the ship so that we can apply proper character physics to it and then do input bindings. We have a lot more tutorials and lessons forthcoming. If you'd like to follow what's happening, you can follow us on Twitter at Dr. Brian Burton, or Facebook at Burton's Media Group, or follow us on our website, burtonsmediagroup.com. If you'd like notification through YouTube, hit the like or subscribe button.